Hi, this is Natasha. In this video, I'll be covering the ChoosePath scene, as you can see here, and explain the key scripts and components that were not used in the previous scene. To begin with, I want to introduce this script called active on start. I attached it to the camera as the camera would be always active in this case, whereas the objects inside would be inactive before the game starts. Therefore, I need the script to pull them out. Here is inside the script. I have a list called GameObjectList to list the game objects, and I have a function called active all game objects. Here I use the loop to go through all the objects in the list and set them active. This is a method I learned from our week 5 lecture, whereas this way of listing is what Brooke taught me. So here on void awake, it will trigger this function to work. Yep. Next is the path behavior script. Here you can see I have 3 paths. Each has its own sprite and collider that has the same shape as the sprite. Each of them has collider as the trigger, and their alpha are set to the full list. If you look inside the script, here you can see a reference to its own sprite renderer, and the 2 color variables. One is named new color and one is an old color, as you can see here. And I set a boolean to check if the path is available to enter. On default, it would be false. And this is to change the scene. Yeah, I public the scene changer script that I used previously in the menu scene and public string map name. This is just the same thing as scene name, but in order to put on equivalent, to not mix them up, I have to name it differently. So here you can see map name. Public game object, scene transition. This is this image UI that I've talked about in the previous video, where in the menu scene, it's playing an image fading in, fading out. That is that game object that has the animator and animations attached to it, whereas this has the functions to play the animation on set trigger. So here on void start, I will grab its own sprite renderer. The color would be set to the old color because I want it to be black and on start, whereas the scene changer would be the script from the scene transition game object. I think I place it here so I don't have to drag and drop them in. Yeah. So to begin with, I'll talk about the 3 functions, the custom functions that I've set for the 3 actions or 3 things that I need the path to do. At first, I will need it to change into a different color. Here it would be the new color, which is gray, when the player collides or is sitting on the path. So here I would have show path set to changing the color to the gray color, and the same thing goes with hide path. Instead, it would have the old color instead, so that would be when the player exits the collider. Lastly, I would need it to have a function that will trigger the scene transition, along with loading the next scene that are assigned differently for each of these paths. So you can see here, scene changer.scene name. This is reference to the script here, scene name, because as you can see, here I set to menu, because this is when I want the menu button to trigger the scene transition. I want it to be set to menu on default. But if I empty it, it will still work, because here in the path, I have referenced the map name. I've given its name to map 1. Here. See, map 1, map 2, map 3, 1, 2, 3. So as long as I reference it here, even if this is empty, it will still work for these paths, but it wouldn't work for the menu button, because that's the script I use for here on default. Next one is, so scene name, map name, scene changer, change scene. This is just to do this function that I talked about in the previous video on the menu scene. Yeah, so now the 3 functions were explained. Here, going back to updates, I want to check if the player has pressed the key W or the key up arrow. So, and along with that, I also need to check if the path is available. So here you can see up on trigger enter 2D, so when the player is colliding with the collider, it will trigger it to change its color to the new color, along to set the boolean to true. So during this stage, the player would be setting on the path, meaning that they could choose the path. So here's just to check if they are sitting on the path. And if this happens, if they click that, it will trigger select path. Here is to change the scene and play the scene transition. The second one is, so I explained that as well. And on trigger exit is pretty similar. It's just to change it back to the old color, change the sprite to its old color, and set the availability to false. So when it's set to false, this won't be triggered even if the player press these keys. Yeah, That is for the path behavior. Lastly, it will be player movement. I can show you. So here I'm pressing on A and D, the key A and D, to move left and right. And if I press W, it chooses a path like I said. However, you can see that I'm currently facing a problem, which is the player does play the right animation movement when I press D, but when I go towards the left, it doesn't change the animation. And I'll explain the script first and tell you about what I'm not sure why it's doing that. So here in the script, there is vector2, variable that I named movement. I choose to use vector2 instead of like float horizontal or vertical because I find it easier to read it without getting confused with get x is horizontal or vertical. So solely because of that. And here I have float to control the speed, to play movement speed, and animator for animator to play left and right. And here in the animator, as you can see, I have a blend tree or tree blend for horizontal float parameter, and I inspect it. Yeah, so play the move left animation when it goes negative, play move right if it goes positive, and if I check that in the animator, it does work the way I want it to. And also, if I check the animation, move left, it does have the correct animation, which is why I was still trying to figure out what went wrong, because the same script worked in the next scene I would show you in the next video for the top-down movement, so it goes both vertical and horizontal. However, it did not work here. This did work previously, but I did change some of the script line to just clear things up a bit, and by doing so, I might have messed up something that ultimately leads to this error. This will be something I have to fix after this progress, and I will probably record a video about it in my vlog. So yeah, now going back to the script. Void start. So movement is a vector 2, so I just have to mention its x value. I set it to 0, so it will be at the center, at the start. Animator would to get its own animator component. Void update. Movement x, its x value would equals to input get x is horizontal times the travel speed, so here I can control its movement speed. And animator set float would equals to this, and it's x movement. Yep. So here I use fix update because, well, I use fix update instead of update because I have two colliders on both sides. What was it? Called blockings. I use fix update so when the player hits into these blocks, it won't glitch. So here, it just stops when it hits the wall, but if I say place this here, oops. What's in it? Okay, and save, goes back. It will glitch like that, and I don't want that. So I place it in fix update just to fix that physics stuff. That's how I understand it. The line here I use transform that position plus its own position once again, and the new vector 3 with the horizontal movement here, according to the input, and the other will just remain 0, so I don't need it to move vertical nor back and forwards, like and on Z value. So yeah, and time delta time, so it stays consistent with its movement. And yeah, that will be pretty much it. And as I mentioned in the end of the last video, I did change the background to a different design. As you can see here, I choose the map based on different path, but before this, I actually made a different kind of scene on this. Yeah, here I have 3 characters in this scene, and they all are buttons that I can click and enter different maps. However, upon feedback, I did think this will work better because it matches the previous scene menu here. So this scene explains where this is. That was the idea. I might change it in the future according to different feedbacks, but currently I think this is the best way to go with these 2 scenes. Yeah, so this is it for the second scene, ChoosePath. Thank you for watching, and in the next video I'll be talking about my first map, which is the only map that are having some progress. The other maps are all currently empty. So yeah.